I'm Jenny Carlson. Welcome to Thunder Thursday Hangout. I've got our Thunder coverage team here. We're without our studio today, but we've got our hangout, and we're still going to talk about the Thunder as they're in the middle of this playoff series with Memphis after beating Houston. I've got Darnell Mayberry, our Thunder beat writer, who's over at the Thunder practice training facility, and John Rohde, our other Thunder beat writer. He's at his home in Edmond. All right, guys, let's start with this question. Is the single biggest X factor in this series against Houston, does it hinge on what Kevin Martin does? Darnell, what do you think about that?
I think not. I think the single biggest factor in this series is defense. When the Thunder plays defense against the Grizzlies, they're able to stay in the game more. They got to really limit Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol, and as we saw in Game 2, Mike Conley. So if they're able to do those three things or limit those three guys, they'll give themselves a chance to win.
Okay, Rohde, what about Kevin Martin? What role does he play in this series?
He is role 1A. Darnell is right. Defense is first, but you still got to outscore the other guys. Life just gets a lot simpler, Jenny, when he's scoring. Not asking him to go off for 25 or 30. Just get your 15 to 20. Do it the way you're expected to do it. Same with Serge Ibaka. Maybe Reggie can pick up the slack a little bit. Everybody's got to pick up the slack for Russ being out. It can't be just on one guy as great as Durant is.
Has that been their biggest problem, John, that you mentioned a couple different guys, but there's not been any one guy that's really been consistent since Westbrook went out as that sidekick to Durant? Has that been an issue for this Thunder team?
Well, sure. I mean, we thought we had it. You had it 2 days in a row with, or 2 games in a row with Martin, obviously 25 a pop, and Reggie went off a game, and Serge finally got some confidence back. But again, we're not asking everybody to be the hero. We're just asking other guys to do their job plus a half a step up. That's it. I think that would be sufficient.
All right, Darnell, let's talk about Serge Ibaka, somebody that John mentioned, and you mentioned defense earlier, but offensively, he hasn't been what we thought he could be since Westbrook went out. Is he suffering as much as anybody on this team in the absence of Westbrook? Is his game affected offensively as much as anybody on this team?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Russell Westbrook gave Serge Ibaka 50% of his assisted made field goals. So in other words, 50% of Ibaka's baskets came off of, or 75% of Serge's baskets were assisted field goals, and of those, 50% were assists from Russell Westbrook. So that just goes to show you how much Serge was dependent on Russell Westbrook to generate some offense for him, whether it was in that pick and pop, pick and roll, or Russell driving to the basket and dishing at the last minute to Ibaka. So Serge has got to find a way to really get some more offense going on his own without Russell Westbrook.
Ever since he missed that tip-in, Darnell, it seems like his offensive game just hasn't been the same. Is he still suffering a little mentally from that, or is something else going on here with his offensive game?
Well, I thought in Game 2 he came out and his shots looked a lot better. He just sort of wasn't sticking with them. You could tell that he normally has a long sort of protracted release that really just lingers, and he
Oop, we've lost Darnell. He's frozen up there. Go ahead, Darnell. We got you back.
So it just seems like now Serge isn't committed to maintaining that release as long as he normally does. I think if he gets back to that, it's just something real small in his mechanics that you can see is probably troubling him right now with his shot. But I think Game 2 was a good sign because he got some good looks, and they just didn't fall.
John, another question about Serge Ibaka. He's obviously being asked to do a lot defensively. He was asked to do a lot defensively in the Rockets series as they went small, and he was having to guard James Harden some. Now in this series with the challenge of guarding Zach Randolph, does that defense that he's having to play, is that affecting his offense at all?
Oh, I don't see how it can't. I mean, this is not his cup of tea. This is banging, Jenny. These guys are beating him up inside. Zach Randolph taking him down low underneath the bucket all the time, leaning on him, beating him up. At the beginning of the last game offensively for Serge, 2 shots rattled in and out, and he missed a dunk when he was fouled and it wasn't called. So that's 0 for 3. But he stuck with it, and I think Darnell, after that, he made 4 straight, and you thought he was coming on, and then he just kind of disappeared again. So no question the defensive assignment has to play a part of this. If this were Denver running up and down, blocking everybody's shot, he could be excelling. But it's not Denver, it's Memphis.
Darnell, has he been the best defensive player so far in this series?
I think he's been up there. You got to look at what he's done with Zach Randolph. We all thought coming into this series, Nick Collison would be sort of that quote unquote X factor against Randolph, but Serge Ibaka has really played him better than Nick Collison. So you got to give him credit for, at least if he's not contributing offensively, you can't just look at one end of the court and say, he's not making an impact, because I think he's done a fabulous job of limiting Zach Randolph.
Rhodey, who's your best defender in this series so far?
Marc Gasol. Oh, you mean for the Thunder?
Yeah, I'd have left it open.
It's Serge. But the thing of it is it might be Perk, but he's been so bad offensively, I can't ignore it. He had 4 turnovers. I mean, last game, I think him and Collison had 4 turnovers. You can't have 8 turnovers from guys who get the ball for 3.5 seconds a game. That's a lot of turnovers per second.
We're going to talk a little bit more about those guys in a second, but before we get totally off the offense, let's talk about Scott Brooks for a second, John. Does he have any more offensive buttons that he can push? Is there anything else that he can do from a coaching standpoint to help this offense?
Well, at least he's pushing them. I mean, all season long, he just refused to push any buttons. Everything was set in stone. And then I wouldn't say he hit a panic button, so to speak, but he got a little more creative and a little more reactionary. I think he's loosened up quite a bit for Scott Brooks, maybe not for some coaches, but for Scott Brooks, he's letting it all hang out so far, I think.
He hasn't been Mr. Consistency every game. We've at least seen some changes. Darnell, what about that question of offensive buttons? Do you think there's something Scott Brooks could do differently to help this offense maybe catch a little more fire?
Do I need to start the chant? I will. Reggie Jackson.
He's starting. What else?
Reggie Jackson. I think Reggie Jackson's got more to give. I'd like to see the ball in his hands a lot more, let him facilitate, orchestrate the offense, and come down and really try to attack and put pressure on the defense. Now, having said that, they do have Mike Conley, and in Game 2 they put Tony Allen on him, so those are 2 really bulldog defenders, and it's not like going against Patrick Beverly and Jeremy Lin, so Reggie Jackson got his work cut out for him in this series, but I'd still like to see him be able to be a little bit more assertive and get to the rim and try to create for himself and others.
Hey, Darnell, speaking of Mike Conley, came and had a fantastic game in Game 2, really seemed to be that third option offensively for the Grizzlies. What does the Thunder have to do to make sure he's not sort of that outside yin to Zebo and Randolph in the interior, their yang? What do they got to do to stop that guy?
Put Thabo Sefolosha on him for more stretches, longer stretches. I think, Reggie Jackson's still trying to figure him out. Thabo Sefolosha's length and athleticism might be able to bother him a little bit more, hampering him into a tougher shooting night, not give him free passing lanes, things like that. You just got to try to make his life tough and make it difficult for him to do the things that he likes to do in the pick and roll.
All right, John, earlier you mentioned Nick Collison having an off game in Game 2. I've got to ask this question. Does Nick Collison get something of a pass? I mean, you mentioned Kendrick Perkins, too, and he's getting ridiculed regularly. His Game 2 performance, not good. But if you look at what Collison did, wasn't good either. Kendrick Perkins, 4 points, 4 fouls, 6 rebounds, 3 turnovers in 24 minutes. But Collison, no points, 6 fouls, no rebounds, 4 turnovers in 15 minutes. Does Nick Collison get something of a pass here?
Well, that was by far his worst game maybe ever as with the Thunder. And he doesn't get a free pass because he comes through too frequently. There's not much to criticize with that guy very frequently. But you're right, by far his worst game. What they need to do, and I don't know how they stay out of foul trouble, Jenny, is, amazingly they're guarding these guys, Gasol and Randolph. And Randolph, Darnell, is so darn athletic he doesn't get his first foul till 2 minutes left in the third quarter. How these big bangers are not getting fouls and the other guys are, they've got to figure out a way to do that, and you mentioned it. I think Reggie will be in attack mode more often, because if they're going to just leave Perk alone and Collison alone, they might have to help out on Jackson and maybe draw some fouls that way.
Darnell, what do you make of the rough night for both Collison and Perkins on whatever day that was? Sunday? I don't know. My days are completely run together. Tuesday, I guess, Game 2. What do you make of that, Darnell?
It's a long season. Guys are good. They're playing, all NBA caliber players. Zach Randolph's an all-star. So it's going to happen. You're not going to be able to come out and limit him and really take away what he does well every time you play him. We've seen Nick Collison have some extraordinary games against Zach Randolph, but I think he sort of spoiled us. He makes us feel like he is capable of doing that every night, every time they step on the floor, every night. So that's not possible. I think that's just one game, and Nick Collison knows he didn't play well. He'll get back to it.
Rhodey, a lot of people crowing about Perk. What to do about Perk? What do you say to those folks that are saying, we don't want to see that guy on the floor? What do you say to them?
Turn your head when we're on offense. I mean, here's the deal. He shouldn't touch the ball on offense. The only way he should get the ball, Jenny, is if he gets the rebound. That's it. Don't throw it into him, because then he might start thinking, hey, do I shoot this? Don't. He's just got to be a mop-up guy, a defender, a tough guy. He's still worth a lot, but it's not getting the ball down to him and clearing a side for him. Good God, what will that bring? 3 seconds?
Rhodey, let me ask you,
5 yards?
Let me ask you this, Rhodey. Why do you think they're giving him the ball? I mean, why is Scott Brooks continuing to endorse it? Why is Kevin Durant and those guys feeding him the ball?
Well, you know what? If I was the other team, I'd defend. I'd deny everybody the ball except him. I'd bait him into throwing it into him.
Yeah, but why are they throwing him the ball? I don't understand.
I guess he's open. He's the only guy open.
He is open. He's going to continue to be
There's
open.
There's a reason he's open.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. No need to throw it to him. Okay, lastly on the offense, let's talk about Derek Fisher for a second. Darnell, is this the production that this team can now depend on Derek Fisher providing every night out? Is this just now, this is what he does?
I mean, you got to go on based on results. You got to go off of what you're watching, and so far what we're seeing is Derek Fisher produce at a high level offensively. Now, in the second half of Game 2, he didn't have a great half. He only had 5 points. 3 of those came at the buzzer, sort of meaningless three-pointer. But if they're going to leave him open and they're putting so much attention on Kevin Durant, Derek Fisher is going to have opportunities. He's the last guy on the team outside of Kevin Durant that you're going to risk leaving open. So if they're going to continue to put that much pressure on Durant and focus that much attention on him, Derek Fisher's going to have opportunities, and so far he's made the most of them.
Rhodey, how surprised should we be that Derek Fisher's doing what he's doing in these playoffs? Should we be surprised?
Not very. He's been Mr. April, Mr. May, all those things, Mr. June. But that was the biggest wasted effort of Game 2 on Tuesday, was his effort. You can't expect that, but you got it, and you didn't take full advantage of it. His first half was terrific. I think he had 13 in the second quarter alone. But just tuck him in the corner, have him be your safety valve. They want to leave him open, they can pay the price. Yeah, I think 17, 18 points don't depend on it, but 8 to 10 to 12, yes.
Okay. Hey, let's rewind for a second, guys. 2 years ago, these two teams played in a great series, fantastic, lots of fun to watch. Is this Thunder team, John, is this group better than the Thunder team that beat the Grizzlies 2 years ago?
No, I can't say that. Not without Westbrook, they aren't. He's just that huge. But it is this. It's just as close a series, at least so far. I mean, the other one went 7 games, Darnell, and every game ended up being decided by 8 points, even a triple overtime game. But I think it's an entertaining series because both teams seem to play to their strengths, and there's not much margin for error, Jenny, when it comes to winning and losing. I like this series. And there's, by the way, this year, Darnell, there seems to be a lot more respect between the two, even going back to when Zach Randolph shook Nick Collison's hand on a flagrant foul.
Yeah, where's the brouhaha? I mean, these guys, they had the battle in the back hall earlier this season, and now they're all playing nice with each other. Darnell, where's the hate?
Oh, it's coming. You know, we've only played 2 games. This could be a long series, and I think it's coming.
The question I asked John earlier, Darnell, what do you think? Is this Thunder team better than that Thunder team that won 2 years ago?
No Russell Westbrook, as John mentioned, and also no James Harden. And if you take away 2 guys like that, there's no way you can be better. I think Memphis, you know, they didn't have Rudy Gay in that series, don't have him now, but Marc Gasol, much better player. Mike Conley, much better player. They've added some experience. Keon Dooling, Tayshaun Prince, guys like that. They lost Shane Battier, but you know, some of their guys that they still have around are much better players than they were in 2011. So if anybody's better, I'd say it's the Grizzlies.
John, what about you? Is this Grizzlies team better than that Grizz team from 2 years ago?
Yeah, Battier is a huge loss. People never gave him the proper credit, you know, because he made them a really, really good team, tough defensively. But Tony Allen is what he is, and Gasol is better, Conley is better. Same report card that Darnell had. And a lot of people, maybe not at the moment, Jenny, but now certainly are looking at Rudy Gay as addition by subtraction. Great offensive player, but maybe he wasn't everything they needed defensively, and Hollins is always leaning toward the defense.
All right, one other question that sort of rewinds to that series 2 years ago. What player from either team, in you guys' mind, is the most improved from that series 2 years ago to now? John, I'll start with you.
Well, for Oklahoma City, he's not shown it so far, but I would have said Serge. The person who is showing it is Reggie, so that's the easy answer. For them, it's Conley, Mike Conley. Gasol's getting some notoriety, but he's always been good. Conley is just flat out good. And Tony Allen's bragging about him for a reason.
Darnell, what about you? Who's the player that you think has improved most since 2 years ago?
I think Mike Conley. Marc Gasol is getting all this recognition these days, and I'm still sort of underwhelmed with Marc Gasol. He's a very good player, but people are calling him the best center in the league. He just won Defensive Player of the Year. I'm still not sold on Marc Gasol. I know.
Would you take him over Dwight Howard?
No, I wouldn't. I mean,
let me play you.
Off the court. Off the court, of course. I mean, you'd much rather not deal with the headaches that Dwight Howard brings, but on the court, I mean, I'd take Dwight Howard in a heartbeat. I still think he's the best center in basketball, but I'm just not so. I know I'm in the minority, but I'm just not as high on Marc Gasol as everyone else is. So I'm going to say Mike Conley because that's a guy who still doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. Tony Allen's out there trying to build him up, talk about how he's a top 5 point guard, even though that's probably not the case, but he is a superb young point guard, and he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves.
All right, guys, now this series shifts to Memphis on Saturday night, a game on Saturday, game on Monday, 3 and 4. Darnell, you've seen that home court advantage for Memphis, what it's like there, the atmosphere. How much of a home court advantage is this going to be for the Grizzlies?
It's every bit as much of an advantage as the Thunder has in Oklahoma City. Everyone talks about how Chesapeake Energy Arena is the loudest arena in basketball and sort of, one of the toughest places to play, but Memphis is right up there with the Thunder, and I know it's going to be loud in there. The fans are crazier than Thunder fans. I mean, they'll get on players, they'll get on, if you're a visitor sitting in the stands, you might not have a good night, so that's just a wild atmosphere, a crazy environment, and I think it's going to be tough on the Thunder. All those role players that are struggling to make shots at times throughout the playoffs without Russell Westbrook, they could struggle even more on the road because that's going to be a hostile environment.
Rhodey, is the Thunder going to be able to steal one in Memphis, or do they come back for Game 5 down 3-1?
Well, I think they can, and Darnell, it's louder than Chesapeake, and the reason is it's got a better sound system. I find it funny that this Memphis fan is saying, oh, the noise is piped in. Dude, you're at the music capital, for crying out loud. Speakers. And you know what? They're more rested in Memphis, Jenny, because they don't sell out until the postseason. So yeah, it's definitely louder in Houston. So it's going to be a lot more hostile environment than some of those players like Reggie and Liggins and all of our Darnell's top 5 are used to seeing.
All right, lastly, guys, who wins on Saturday night? Darnell?
Memphis.
All right. Rhodey?
Memphis.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Hey, thanks for joining our Thunder Thursday Hangout. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman. See you guys.